So yesterday I found this book in my kitchen, and it's called Second Nature, Brain Science and Human Knowledge. And it's by Gerald Edelman, MD, winner of the Nobel Prize. And Gerald won a Nobel Prize in biology, and I suspect it was for something good. But I don't know. I just, like I said, I found this book in my kitchen. And what I usually do when I find a book is I try to get to the point with it, and it's kind of like almost like searching Google. I try to open it to the place that is going to tell me the most about it, and it just kind of happened this time. Again, I opened to page 39. It says, "A brief summary of the discussion so far may serve to focus a view of consciousness I am taking here. Conscious states are unitary but change serially over time. They have wide-ranging contents and access. Their range is modulated by attention. And although in large measure they show intentionality, they are about objects or events. They do not exhaust the domains to which they refer. Above all, they entail subjective feelings or qualia. My thesis is that the evolution of a reentrant thalammatical cortical system, capable of giving rise to dynamic core, allowed the integration of vastly increased complexes of sensory motor inputs. Animals having such a core were therefore capable of refined discriminations. Qualia are just those discriminations, each entailed by a different core state. In brief, conscious states reflect the integration of neurostates in the core. I think the main error with this theory is the assumption that consciousness comes from in here. I think the problem with that theory is that core is not only a product of evolution. It not only has a history that goes all the way back to wherever, the lineage of the person that it came from is. It has a history within the particular person. And that history, through space and time, has an organization that we have not understood on the level of physics. And so the biology is resting on the understanding of the physics. The fact that we see a singular iteration of a thing in time is, in a sense, a perceptual error. It's an error that we can't see through time. It's an error that we see that brain core as a singular object and that we don't see its history, because it's fairly clear from what happens inside the brain that brain core is aware of its history. So the classical way to understand this is kind of the way that Edelman is supposing, that there are serial changes in the neurological states that represent what would be the history of the organism. In other words, the learning and the working with concepts and the memory all are represented in changes in the neurological organization. And this is one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it, the other way to notice what's happening, is to see that the brain itself does not exist independent of the rest of the world. And I guess this might be the non-dual way to look at it, or at least a less dual way to look at it. And that is to notice that it wouldn't have existed if it didn't have its history. In other words, it's not just storing what happened to it, but what happened to it created it. And so there's this relationship that still exists with its environment, with the rest of the world, with the rest of the universe. And on the level of physics, that organization in the core might actually emerge in the moment from the energetic and mass relationships with everything else in its environment. And that has a much greater potential to explain the phenomenon, the incredibly complex phenomenon that we know as consciousness.